Alright guys, we're going to go ahead and go over your warm-up this morning or afternoon depending which hour I have you. Let's take a look at number 1. When we go to factor this one, we've got it in standard form. That's a good check. Making sure that there's nothing we can pull out of it, that it's okay to land, and the answer is yes. Greatest common factor here is 1. So let's go ahead and do our propeller. Multiply the outside, you get 63. Drop down that inside of 16. We are looking for numbers that can multiply to 63 and add to 16. And in this case, our answer is 9 and 7. Because we do have an A term here, we're going to need to go ahead and divide by A so we can bring these wheels down for landing. When I divide by this A term, though, this 9 over 7 cannot simplify, so that's our first wheel. The 7 over 7, though, over here, it does simplify into a solid 1 as our second wheel. Okay, taking it to the parentheses. When I go to the parentheses, on this 9 over 7, it's a bottoms up. So I'm going to bring that 7 to the front, bring that x in, and plus it to 9. On this 1, it just becomes x plus 1 as our final answer. Okay, let's look at number 2, please. Number 2, when we check this one over for landing, we find that the greatest common factor is 2, so we need to divide that out. When I do that, I get 5x squared minus 1x minus 6, okay, which I know for my final answer then I'm going to have a 2 outside there with my 2 sets of parentheses, okay. So with this, when I look at this, I am now going to look for numbers that can multiply to negative 30 and add to negative 1. And with that answer, my answer is I'm going to use a 5 and a 6. Now remember, we're going to look at this bottom number because that's negative. That means my bigger number, the 6, is going to be negative. So now we have to simplify this by dividing by A. And my A is now 5, not 10. So I'm going to divide by 5, divide by 5. My 5 over 5 reduces to a 1. That's my first wheel. Negative 6 over 5 does not reduce. So when I take that to the parentheses, 1 becomes x plus 1, and negative 6 over 5 becomes 5x minus 6. And that's my final answer there. Looking at number 3. Number 3 is one of our special cases, guys. With number 3, that, if you recognize it, is a difference of squares. If you don't recognize it, that's fine. If you don't recognize it, we'll go ahead and go do the long way on this. Remember, we need an A, B, and a C term. So what this really is 1n squared plus 0n minus 9. Okay? So when I'm looking for this, we check it for landing, and it can only be divided by 1. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply the outside to get negative 9, drop down the inside. So we are looking for two numbers that can multiply to make a negative 9, but add to 0. Well, guys, we know the only way to get a 0 through addition is if we are adding and subtracting the same exact numbers. What two numbers are the same that make up 9? Well, that's 3 and 3. How are we going to get it to be 0? One of them has to be positive, one of them has to be negative. So you should have a positive 3 and a negative 3. Divide by A. Well, my A in this case is just a 1, so I don't need to divide by anything. So I'm going to go to my parentheses. You should have an x plus 3 and an x minus 3 as an answer. Okay, x plus 3 and x minus 3 as an answer. Okay, let's go ahead and look at number 4. On number 4, check it over. Can we divide anything out? No. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply the outside terms to get 36. Drop down that inside term of negative 12. I'm looking for two numbers that can multiply to 36 and add to negative 12. Well, that's going to be 6 and 6. But the problem is that while 6 times 6 makes a positive 36, it doesn't make a negative 12 through addition. So how can I get that negative 12 but a positive 36 still? Well, that's by changing them both to negative. So you should have negative 6 and negative 6, multiply to make a positive 36, and add to make a negative 12. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and divide by a here. My a in this case is 9. Now, when I go to simplify this, guys, it doesn't come out perfect, okay, but we do have to reduce these. Okay, this reduces by 3, so we're going to divide both the top and the bottoms by 3 on actually all of these. And we end up with a negative 2 over 3 and another negative 2 over 3 as our two wheels. So our wheels in this case, guys, are the exact same. So when I go to my wings, I'm still going to have 3x minus 2. Remember, bottoms up, bottom the fraction to the front of the parentheses, and a 3x minus 2. Because my two wings are the exact same, we're actually going to condense it down to one set of parentheses with a little squared mark, and that is our final answer. Okay, go ahead and hang on to these warm-up slips today, guys. What I want you to do now is your sub is going to give you a copy of the review for the power assignment. Okay, you're going to get 10 minutes, 10-15 minutes with the, your sub's choice of letting you work with a partner on it. At the end of the time, the 15 minutes or however long your sub decides you get to work on this, you're going to go ahead and come back to your seats and we're going to talk about the answers with it. Regardless, I'm going to give you guys about 20-30 minutes to take the power assignment. Okay, so go ahead and get that paper. Get that paper, and the sub can pause the video for me, please. Okay, so guys, my number 5 on my paper is your number 1. So with that, you should get x minus 1 in one set of the parentheses and 2x plus 3 in the second set. Biggest thing here is remembering to reduce. Remember to reduce. Looking at your number 2, when we multiply this, you got to watch your signs here, these two negatives. Your magic numbers should be negative 15 and positive 2. You have to divide by your a term of 5, and that 15 simplifies. So your one parenthesis should say x minus 3, and your second set of parentheses should be 5x plus 2. Okay, guys, looking at number 3, your magic numbers should be 4 and 5 over 2, which takes you to your parentheses. You should have an x plus 4 in one set of parentheses and a 2x plus 5 in your second set of parentheses. Looking at number 4, if you go ahead and factor this through, your magic numbers should be 2 and 4 over 3, which means that your only option here for your parentheses is choice A. Now, if you're one of my lazy students, or I should say actually smarter students, you can actually do this problem without having to factor. When I take a look at this, we've not yet had an answer that says not factorable, so you can immediately cross that one out. I haven't even made that an option for you guys. The second thing I see is this one down here has a 2 in front of it. If I see a 2 times a 1, I know I'm not getting that 3 that I need up here, so I can cross that off. Then I look at A and B as my only two options left, and I see that B has a minus in it. Well, in my original problem, I have nothing but positives, plus sign and a plus sign, which tells me that both of my signs in my parentheses have to be positive, which also takes out choice B. So right there, I did that whole problem without actually doing the work for it. So that's something to take into consideration, guys. All right, guys, looking at your number 5 and number 6. On these ones, for number 9, when you get your magic numbers, they can reduce, so you should have 4 and negative 3 over 2. And if you haven't picked that's choice A yet, you can go ahead and circle that one. Another way, you can do this one. First of all, I know we didn't pull out a common factor, so you can immediately cross B and C off. And when I look at this, 5, there's no way a 5 is going to get me a 2 as a leading front number, so I can cross off choice D, which leaves you with nothing but choice A. Looking over at number 10, for number 10, you get your magic numbers of 3 and negative 5 over 2. So when I look at this one, my final answer here, guys, is going to be choice C. Okay, so when I look at that, this one's a little bit harder to go through the tricks and whatnot, and you'd actually have to do that one to figure that one out. So let's go ahead and look at numbers 7 and 8. Okay, guys, on this next problem, your magic numbers should be -4 and 2. Now remember, at the beginning, we had to divide out by this 3, so that 3 should be out front of your next part and also in your answer over here. Okay, when we divide that 3 out, that leaves us with a front number of 2, meaning that our magic numbers needed to be divided by 2, which gives me that -4 and that 1/2. Bring it to the parentheses, you should have a 3 out front. If you don't, your answer would be marked wrong. X minus 4 and 2x plus 1. On the next problem, again, we needed to divide out a 2 at the beginning before we could land the plane. So when I do that, that leaves me with a front number of a. So my magic numbers of -8 and -5 should both be divided by 4, which brings my magic numbers to be -2 and then -5/4. So final answer, 2x minus 2 and 4x minus 5. Okay, looking at these next two problems on your paper. With this, guys, my number 13, I've lost track now as to what number this is for you guys. But your top number should be 20, bottom number -9, because we're not dividing anything out here. Your A here is 4, so when you get your magic numbers of -4 and -5, you need to divide by that front number of 4. Which gives you -1 and -5/4 when we simplify. Choosing your answer, you should have chosen A. I'm going to go ahead and do number 14 so you guys can see my process on this one, because this is our special case. Remember, this is called that difference of squares. So again, like I just explained on the warm-up, this is actually written as 9m squared plus 0m minus 1. And again, if you want to put x's instead of that m, I'm not going to complain at all. Nothing we can divide out here, so I'm going to start my magic numbers. Multiply the outside, that's -9. Drop down that inside. To get my -9, and have it add to 0, I need a -3 and a +3. Guys, if you put +3 and -3, I'm not judging. Okay. So let's go ahead and divide by a here, which is 9. Now, we need to simplify this, guys. -3/9 or +3/9 can both be divided by 3. So I'm going to go ahead and simplify this, and you get -1/3 and a +1/3. Okay, so our answer here, remember, we have fractions, so this is a bottoms up. And so I have to bring that 3x minus 1 and 3x plus 1. We have to list both of them because one of them is a minus sign and one of them is a positive sign. Okay, guys, last problem here. This is probably the easiest one on the paper for you. Magic numbers of 5 and 2 multiply to make 10. They add up to make 7. We're dividing by 1, so those numbers aren't changing. Bring them right to your parentheses, and your final answer should say x plus 5 and x plus 2. All right, guys, going to go ahead and take that power assignment. Won't have it graded for you guys by tomorrow, obviously, because I'm not here today. But we'll talk about it tomorrow and go from there. Good luck.